It happened without any fanfare whatsoever. It happened in the dead of night, under the cover of darkness. It happened without a single word being mentioned. It had to be discovered. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has now been caught warming the past and cooling the present. July 2012, according to NOAA, became the hottest month on record in the United States during a summer that was declared too hot to handle by NASA scientists. That summer, more than half the country was experiencing drought, and wildfires had scorched more than 1.3 million acres of land, according to NASA. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Climatic Data Center in 2012, the average temperature for the contiguous U.S. during July was 77.6 degrees, 3.3 degrees above the 20th century average, marking the warmest July and all-time warmest month on record for the nation in a period of record that dates back to 1895. That's what they reported, and they did do that with a lot of fanfare. Oh, yeah. July 2012 was said to be the hottest month, the all-time warmest month on record since 1895. Now, of course, I poo-pooed that immediately because what happened before 1895 irrelevant here? How many centuries were there before 1895? How many millennia were there? We don't know. Oh, yes, we do, Mr. Limbaugh, because we have the protective hockey stick formula was presented by an environmentalist from a university, and it's clear that it was very, very bad. Oh, really? And how do we get that? Well, they sample ice cores and tree rings. Oh, that's how they... Okay. So other than that, a hockey stick graph, ice cores and tree rings, we don't know what the temperatures were before 1895. That's right, Mr. Lip, which means we don't know what the temperatures were before 1895. Which leads me to ask another question here about global warming. Would somebody please explain to me who decided, where is it written, that what is happening on Earth now, climate-wise, is the norm, and any variation from it is a crisis? How in the world can we know? Even 1895 forward. That's such a smidgen, a small period of time to keep records, and then try to extrapolate in the history of the planet? But even more than that, the vanity of the environmentalist wackos to conclude that right now is normal. And anything warmer and any violent hurricane never before have been this bad, never going to get this bad again. What? It's absurd. The whole thing has always been intellectually absurd. There's another thing. A bunch of environmentalist wackos have had to step back. A large consensus of scientists expected the Great Lakes to start losing their volume. Contrary to the oceans rising, the Great Lakes were supposed to get shallower and shallower because of global warming and evaporation, or who knows, whatever reason. There's a problem. The Great Lakes are rising, and they're rising rapidly. The Great Lakes are up feet in just the last year in total violation of every global warming scientist model. There are still icebergs on some of the Great Lakes. Yes, my friends, Lake Superior, I believe. Lake Superior is up. All the Great Lakes are up, and they should have been down, and they should have been getting shallower, and they're not. And it's not predicted in the models, and the models are the only thing we've got that says there's global warming. There is no data. There is no empirical data. There's zero, nada. It's all based on model forecasts for 2100, for 2050, for 2075. Well, this is one of the greatest hoaxes ever pulled over on people. But now these scientists, they're really puzzled. I mean, some of these local weeds actually believe this stuff. They're not just engaging in politics and lying on purpose of being paid for it. Some of them actually believe it. And so when the Great Lakes started rising, that's the exact opposite of what's supposed to happen. Well, by the same token, July 2012, hottest year on record. Had to be because they've been predicting this. The models said this was going to happen. It turns out they made it all up. Folks, because under cover of darkness, the hottest July for the nation on record is now 1936. 2 years ago, during the scorching summer of 2012, July 1936 lost its place on the leaderboard. July 2012 became the hottest month on record in the U.S. Now, as if by magic, and according to NOAA's own data, July 1936 is now the hottest month on record again. It just happened. They didn't announce it. They didn't say, we're sorry. They didn't excuse us. We got it wrong. They just put it up there. You can't get any clearer proof that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration adjusted past temperatures. You cannot escape it. And it is another bureaucracy of the federal government that has been corrupted by the leftists who populate it. And as a noted expert in the matter named Watts, Anthony Watts, is a climate blogger, as he has pointed out, this isn't just some issue with gridding or anomalies or method. It's about NOAA not being able to present historical climate information of the U.S. accurately. In one report, they give one number. In another, they give a different one with no explanation to the public as to why. This simply isn't acceptable. It is not being honest with the public, and it isn't scientific, and it violates the Data Quality Act. That's what Anthony Watts wrote. It's like the unemployment data. And in fact, do you recall, ladies and gentlemen, it was about a month ago that there was a story that a section of the Antarctic ice sheet broke away. And I shared with you that I was reading my tech blogs when that happened. And these tech bloggers, it was actually fascinating. They were scared to death. You could read the fear. They thought they were doomed. This proved global warming. The Antarctic was breaking up much sooner than anybody predicted. Oh, no, this meant melting ice and rising sea levels, and they were scared to death. And then the next day, we found that it's a quite normal occurrence. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, there is the simple fact that can't be denied. Antarctic sea ice is growing. There were some explorers that went down to Antarctica to prove global warming, and they got stuck in ice they didn't know was there. Their little boat that contained a consensus of scientists got stuck in ice that they didn't know was there. So they had to get a bunch of icebreakers out there. And I think a Chi-Com icebreaker actually got stuck in the ice, too. It was a while before they could be rescued. June 29, 2014, the sea ice coverage around Antarctica over the weekend marked a record high, with the ice surrounding the continent measuring at 2.07 million square kilometers. According to an environmentalist and author who says the ice there has actually been increasing since 1979, despite continued warnings of global... So just in one day, look what we've got. More ice than ever since 1979 at Antarctica, when we're told it's breaking apart and melting. And all of a sudden, NOAA, under the cover of darkness... July 1936 still is the hottest month on record. July 2012 actually wasn't close. So they've admitted they were lying about that. There's no apology. There is no excuse us. There's no, oops, our data was incorrect. They just took it down. Took down the fact that July 2012 was the hottest. And July 2012 being the hottest was mandatory if everything else they're saying is true. Simple fact of the matter is there hasn't been any warming in 15 years. This is the biggest problem the wackos have. And they've had to come up with all kinds of oddball explanations for it. Well, it's just a temporary delay, and it actually is going to make it even worse when it resumes its normal warming speed and so forth. They're just wrong. You're just making it up. It's all predictions in computer models. If I could boil this whole global warming, climate change argument down to one thing, I'm always searching for the simplest way to persuade. And I've had people say, Rush, why do you care so much? Because this is emblematic of how the left corrupts and creates panic in people, after which they demand the government do so. This is how government grows. This is how people lose liberty with little hoaxes like this. The government lies about something, scientists lie about something, people panic. Oh my God, my children, oh my God, we're going to... Yeah, unless the government does something. And then the government comes up with ideas to fix it. And what they involve? You giving up freedom, you paying higher energy prices, you driving smaller cars, you dialing back your lifestyle. That's the solution. And it's unproven. The only thing there is that says there might be global warming is a bunch of computer models scientists have put together with corrupt data that they've entered in to be analyzed. And that is why every catastrophe is minimum 20 years from now, so that they can never be proven wrong. You ever notice the global warming never tell you what it's going to be next year? The global warming people never tell you what the sea level rise is going to happen in the next 6 months. I mean, if we're warming, we're warming. Well, Mr. Limbaugh, it doesn't happen that fast. Of course it doesn't, but I've been hearing all this from 1980. Back in 1980, they said that we had 20 years. Well, it's been 40 almost. And there's nothing to it. And now they simply erased July 2012. They didn't tell anybody. Just reinstalled July 1936. Hottest month on record, which totally obliterates everything they have said recently about current conditions and what they mean to the planet for the next 100 years. Again, a reason for the books, folks. Critical thinking, analytical thinking, curiosity, an automatic suspicion of political agendas. That's what I think is necessary to correct some of this. Not all. Needs to be a lot done, but that's our little contribution.